It's been like a whirlwind this last month or so, and I don't know who knows and who doesn't know. But Pops has taken his positive energy to another place. And I figured I needed to address it because I keep catching people off guard and shocking them that he's no longer with us. He had a slip and fall accident, which I'll discuss in a bit. Many of you know the stages of 5 stages of grief, and it's like denial, bargaining, acceptance, anger, depression, not in that order. I, of course, did it my own way, and the denial and bargaining happened fairly quickly. From the time Toby called me to the time I got to the hospital, I really only had 2 hours to deal with that till I got to the acceptance phase, when they just had such a poor prognosis for him. And then it went to the anger stage a couple days later, when they finally pronounced him dead. And the anger part of it really was somebody that had so much energy and so much personality, bigger than life, to be taken the way he was taken. That was the anger part of it. And the other part was my two brothers, Troy and Chris. I had 2 hours about to deal with the denial and bargaining, and we didn't want to have Chris and Troy driving down with that knowledge on their mind. So all that time, that those 20 hours between the time they found out and the time they got there to find out that he wasn't going to make it, that was angering, because just the special relationship that they had with him, and they had to spend all that time bargaining and in denial, and then to have to say goodbye. That was probably the toughest part. And then the depression part, I think things happen for a reason. And in hindsight, I went through what probably was some type of depression many years earlier, and it was really my conversations with Pops that got me out of it. We had some great heart-to-hearts. We had talks about my mortality. We had talks about his mortality. So I think mentally, you're never prepared for it, but it made it a little bit easier on me because we had so many very candid talks over the last 3 or 4 years. And then, of course, getting him on video, which the impetus of that came from Troy when I was doing my real estate rides. And I was going down to Florida to visit him. I said, I really want, number one, for him to see himself, hold a mirror up to himself and see how we see himself, how we see him. And I could tell that he was tickled by it. And he was tickled by the responses. He wasn't even on Facebook when we first started doing them. And then they see Toby chuckling on the couch. He said he had to get in and had to know what it was all about. And he actually called me that first morning after I posted the first video. And he said, well, number one, this will surprise a lot of people, but we've gone years without talking as close as we were, because we just figured, if you needed something, you could always just reach out. So I get a phone call and I see his name pop up on my phone first thing in the morning after I posted the first video of us where I talked about my origination. And he said, BA, man, people have been telling me to write a book for years, and then you go and put all my shit out there for free. I've contacted my lawyer and I'm suing you. And he'd never seen, I hadn't even thought about it, but he grew up in a time when there weren't videos, so he'd never seen himself. And I could tell he was just really tickled. And we just started doing those, we did those because it was fun. And I also wanted, people to have the experience that I had and my friends in high school and Troy and Chris's friends had in high school of what it was like to be at that circular kitchen table at 2405 Red Maple. And was quite surprised by the responses we got when I ran out, and everybody wanted us to do more. So we did more. Anyway, so the depression part, I know there's going to be times when it hits me that he's not here and I want to pick up the phone just to shoot the shit and clown with him, and I won't be able to do it. And I'll embrace that. But the overwhelming feeling I have is this, as I saw Steven Tyler's T-shirt when he came out for an encore at the Bryce Jordan Center. I was a lucky fucker to have him as my guide, as my North Star, to have him enlist me to help him raised a rambunctious little 4-year-old, and all the things that that we've been through. He's always done it. He always did it in a positive manner. So, like I said, I'll have those moments and I'll embrace them. But again, overwhelming is I just feel lucky to have stolen him for 50, almost 56 years, and especially these last 4 or 5 when we got to kick it for all eternity on social media. And then I also think about how fortunate he was to not just have the love of Toby, but the love of my mom. Even when they were going through their separation and divorce, there was never a harsh word. There were no lawyers involved. He said, whatever you want, you can have. And that was a good life lesson for me. And for my mom to take his passing as hard as she did, I had to reflect. And then I just remembered, oh, wait a minute. He was the chicken hawk captain of the football team at University of Cincinnati who corrupted my mom. So he was her first love and her only love because she never remarried. So it totally made sense. And even, when her parents died, he bought their house for his parents and moved them in to help them out financially. And there was a point in the 90s where my mom got really, really sick, and he drove up from Virginia to take care of her. So, he taught me what it's like to love a woman and be loved. To watch Toby, of course, I knew that she loved him, and it was always fun to visit them and see this cute little couple who've been together for 30-something years, just hang out with them. And to see her in the hospital and, how she held his hand and caressed him and talked to him, just showed me that he was truly loved by her. And she was such a rock star to lose someone who meant so much to him. Of course, there were tears shed, but she was so impressive the way that she was with him when he was in the hospital. And then I call her the sister wife, Marianne Flint. She showed up there just as soon as I did, and she was there by Toby's side. I can't thank her enough for being there for Toby, and to see how much she loved him was also just overwhelming. And you just can't. The legacy is what you see. The people that he affected in a positive way is what, again, I grasp onto, and what makes me smile, even when I know that I'll never be able to talk to him again. And then Rochelle, who his best friend Hutch, who passed away several years ago. Rochelle was there, and between Marianne and Rochelle, I don't know that there are any funnier women in the world. And they were there for Toby. So that was, again, a legacy that he left, that he had such an effect on all of those women. And then I was getting calls from people who worked with him, like Murtis Horton and Susan Tamala. They gave me some stories that he had never told me that I wasn't aware of. And a lot of it had to do with the racism that he faced when he was working. And he always said, racism is a pebble in my shoe, not an albatross around my neck. And that's what he taught us, how to view racism. And even when he would talk about some of the things that were happening to him, I mean, he was not one of the few Black faces at the level that he was with Mobil Oil. But it wasn't like he complained. He would discuss them in a way as how he navigated it, overcame it, and didn't let it affect the way he did his job, and really overachieved in his job. So that there was nothing that they can do other than to waddle in their blatant racism. So I wanted to thank Murtis and Susan for sharing those stories with me, because, again, that trickled down to me. And I think one of the mistakes that some people make is, especially in a conservative circle, they'll say, don't blame the white man, you got to achieve. But I don't know any man of color, any person of color, anyone who has been marginalized, who is successful, who's not, number one, accepted the fact that there's racism, but also created the hack. So for my whole life, he's shown me how to get around the rat trap. The other two women I actually wanted to thank was Ruth and Dawn Dougherty. Pat was one of my best friends. It's like an older brother to me. And when he passed away, the family was so generous in asking me to keep Ruth company and her happy place in March of 22, her first time without Pat, and St. Martin. And for me, it was just as therapeutic because Ruth and I got to mourn Pat one-on-one. Now, I told her, now, Ruth, you being here with my black ass is going to have a lot of eyebrows raised, and I don't care. Let them think what they want to think. And I actually thought it was a one-off, but Ruth must have enjoyed my company because they asked me to go again. And strangely enough, he passed away on the 3rd, and I was supposed to leave for St. Martin on the 4th. And Dawn worked; they were so understanding. Of course, I'm dealing with my pain, but I also didn't want Ruth to have to be on that island by herself. So we just flipped weeks. And thank you again, Dawn, for arranging that. And I got to spend the second week with Ruth. And one of the things they say is when you're going through it, it's often healthy to focus on someone else. So I got to focus on Ruth, and we got to celebrate Pat again, which was so good for me. And then in the evenings when she would go to bed, I would, stand in the swimming pool, and I would upload all the videos that Pops and I did to my Help Me Be a YouTube channel. And there weren't any tears shed. It was just a lot of laughter and just how funny he was. And I'm just so happy that I have those memories forever. I wanted to thank Advent Health because and specifically Tina and David, who were there for all the hours we were there, taking care of Pops, and Dr. Parish, I believe his name is pronounced. It's got to be hard to be doing what they're doing, especially in the brain trauma part of Advent Health, and have to be totally blunt with families and manage expectations while being compassionate. And, I'm pretty good at reading people, and the compassion that they showed, it wasn't contrived. It blew me away. Like even when they would take care of Pops, they would say, Mr. Allen, and they were very respectful, and they were talking to him as if he was awake. And hopefully he heard their words. I can't say enough about them and how respectful they were of him, and how they took care of him and took care of Toby and helped her navigate, which there's no real instruction manual for it, but they did such a wonderful job of it. And then Heather is with Our Legacy. And Heather, my father was an organ donor, and this gets back to the anger part for me, having him pass away the way he did. Heather, they do a consultation, for those who don't know, with the families about the organ donation. And she was just like the rest of the staff, so compassionate and sincerely compassionate in talking about brain death. And what I didn't realize, and what actually made me feel so much better, was that only 2% of the people die from brain death the way Pops passed away. And I was thinking, I just immediately thought, that's amazing. And the second thought was, somebody with such a beautiful brain, I guess the only way to take him out was to take his brain. And then when they explain how the organ donation works, I felt even better. A weight was lifted because there was an opportunity for him to live on by giving someone else life and preventing another family from going through what we were going through. So that was really heartwarming, encouraging. The ceremony that they have, like when they're taking the person, the donor, to the emergency room for the operation, they all line the hallways and give a standing O, which would have been totally apropos for Pops. It would have been devastatingly hard to do. but I thought it would have been a great send off. Unfortunately, mainly because of age, he didn't have any viable organs. But for a half a day, there was such a great feeling that we may be able to help another family and actually even add to our family. I did have one question for Heather when she was talking about the organ donation. I said, "Do you have a disclosure that someone was going to be taking on sarcasm?" That kind of tripped her up in her whole spiel, but I thought it was a legitimate question people should know. So thank you again to Advent Health and Heather at Our Legacy. Now I had, and how do we move forward? The last gut punch I had was when my parents decided that they were going to separate. I was 12, Troy was 4. They didn't want to separate us, for those who didn't know, and I had to make the decision on who we were going to live with. And no 12-year-old kid wants to tell their mom that they want to live with their dad. But in hindsight, and I actually believe at the time that they knew it was the right decision, and it was the right decision. And then after my mom told me, I just went in my room and I was just crying uncontrollably. And Pops came in the room, and we had a great talk. It was our first. All right, you gotta be the other man in the house. And he said, I need you to help me raise your brother. And it was funny because we had never really had any serious talks at the time. And it wasn't, and the way he asked me or said that I need you to help raise your brother was, it wasn't condescending. It was like his uncertainty about being a single dad and the seriousness or the heaviness of the situation, that I'm really going to need you. So from that day on, of course, I cried myself to sleep. But after that, the whole focus was whatever Pops needs me to do to help raise Troy is what I'm going to do. And so that's why he never really had to worry about me getting into trouble or anything like that, because it wasn't just about me. It was about helping him. And, I had never thought about it that way. This is an adult looking back at it. And when we were doing one of the videos, he said co-parenting, and that word never even occurred to me, but I guess that's what we were doing. So that was the task at hand for, we'll call it 14 years, because by the time Troy's 18, he was a 30-year-old. So that being the first gut punch, and then losing him was the other gut punch. And the last 4 or 5 conversations that we had, and of course it was always funny, but there was definitely some seriousness to it, that he really wanted he and Toby to have a great time in their retirement. He just recently retired. She retired 2 or 3 years ago, I guess. And he wanted to take care of her, make sure that they could take their vacations, go to Cancun. He wanted to move, downsize, because my brothers were so selfish and didn't provide them with any grandchildren. This 6-bedroom, 4,000 plus foot house was way too big for 2 people. So they were in the middle of downsizing, and he wanted to either move close to Daytona where he could gamble, or closer to the Hard Rock, closer to Tampa by me, so that he could gamble. And the gist of it, just like when he said, I need you to help me take care of Troy, is it definitely was, he wanted me to help him take care of Toby. At the time, it was obviously just mortgage related, but now that he's gone, that's essentially my job and my focus. And even though I grieve, it just seems like, again, he's come to me and asked me for his help. So we're just going to help Toby find her dream house, and hopefully she'll do a lot of traveling and enjoying life in her retirement. So I just, again, wanted to thank everyone for the calls, the texts, social media, and through my brothers who've reached out to me. But I felt that everybody really needed to know that I haven't had time to reach out to. And if people have asked me if there was some charity to donate to, and I would just say, if you have if you're an organ donor, you won't regret it. If you don't want to donate organs for whatever religious reasons, I totally respect that. But if you're on the bubble, trust me when I tell you that you want to be an organ donor, because the thought of your loved one living on is such a comforting feeling, and you won't regret it. So, go to your DMV, do an organ donation, or make sure you're an organ donor. And in fact, I think my guy Ed Williams, shout out to Ed, just got a new kidney. So much love to you, Ed, and congratulations on your new life. But if you're on the bubble, I say run out and get it. And I'm actually I'd like to get Heather on a podcast to talk about it, because it will warm your heart to help someone else's family who may lose a loved one and bring them new life. That's it. Love everybody, and the best. Take care.